No, we could hear your clicking sounds.
Yeah, it's a new game, I guess.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Let me share the screen before we start the meeting. Can everyone see the agenda? Perfect. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Before we start the meeting, let me read the public forum. Those interested are invited to address the Hope Suicide Prevention Task Force on any subject not on today's agenda, orally via Zoom webinar. Speakers may provide their name and city of residence for the record, and comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less at the discretion of the meeting coordinator. As an item not listed on the agenda, no response is required from the city staff or the Hope Suicide Task Force, and no action can be taken. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with Jay. If Jay, you're ready.
Sure. Everyone, Happy New Year. So for just a few updates from the county, we've got, I think since the last time we met, I don't recall if we had launched or not, but our campaign, our gun safety campaign has launched. It's on air. It will be on air for the next 2 weeks. And it's going really, really well. We've outperformed any of the metrics that we sort of thought. So, you know, like fancy jargon of like media stuff is impressions, and we've gotten around 5 million impressions as of last week, and we were only projected to hit like 1.5. At least that's what they were telling us. So it's doing really well. A lot of that's thanks to you all for helping us get the word out. Please continue to do that. We've got the flyers out there, and if you know, if for some reason you can't access them, feel free to email me. We've got them in English, Vietnamese, and Spanish. And we also do need some help with getting survey evaluations completed. This is a group, considering it is a gun safety campaign, it is a group that historically does not like to volunteer too much information. So we're struggling with trying to get people to volunteer for the survey, but anything we can try, we're willing to try. We've partnered with an agency. So if you think you've got some connections where maybe you can get it out in the community and see what we can do, please let me know. So that's kind of where we are on the campaign front. Things going well. The second thing is we have the assist training that Hope is hosting, and that's going to be at the end of February. And we've got, I think, 11 registered so far. And we met as a suicide prevention team today and wanted to make sure that we prioritize Hope Task Force before we open it up to any other members. So if you do want to register for that, please reach out to Charu, reach out to me or Jasmine, anyone if you are interested. I can personally say the assist training is fantastic. It's one of the best suicide prevention trainings you'll ever take. And I think that's really most of what we have now. Vic, I was going to leave it to you, but there are some fun policy things that have happened if you all haven't heard, but I'll let Vic take those ones. But that's everything we've got from the county. So if I've forgotten anything, Charu, that you know about, or Vic, please let me know.
Thank you, Jay.
You want me to say a few things real quick? So I'll start a little higher level, Jay. Some of you know that Mago got promoted, I forget when it was, a year, 18 months ago. I can't remember, Jay. It's been a while. So she oversees prevention, both the suicide prevention program and for substance abuse. And I bring it up because that means her position, suicide prevention manager position, she's now got a rec on that. So that's open and she'll be recruiting for it. I don't know, Jay, she might be recruiting now, right?
It is in the final stages as she thinks, but you know how the county can be sometimes. Yes. So
I shouldn't say this. I mean, I'm the guy separate from a county employee who pushes them some of the times to move these job positions through instead of sitting on them forever. Anyway, that's coming up. People should know about that. At our last SPOC meeting, which is our oversight committee meeting, separate from the work groups, and some of you attended that, you know that we added a strategy to our suicide prevention plan. So we had 5 strategies going into last meeting, and we added a 6th, which is around, I don't know, Jay, I forget what the exact final wording was. It's not cultural competency, but it's at least looking at cultural diversity, always considering that in regards to any of the suicide prevention work that we do.
Yeah, we decided that cultural competency was not the right way to word it, because within the industry, apparently that's something that's growing outdated. But it's just making sure, it's almost like, Vic, it's almost like the new competency is a note that all of the other competencies, or all of the other what is the word?
I don't know. At NAMI, we've used, or we've done some trainings around cultural humility. It's been called.
So yeah, the newest kind of tenet that we're putting in place is that all of the other ones should be informed with culture appropriately. So, and it's something that was kind of unspoken, but definitely is going to be a great thing to have in writing to kind of hold some accountability.
Do you want to say something, Jay, quickly about tempos?
Well, yeah, I can say something about tempos. So the tempos front is, so that's our tool for evaluating media portrayals of suicide. And that has a lot of moving parts to it. One being that there was an abstract that our team, along with our Stanford partners, submitted to the American Association of Suicidology conference, and it was accepted. And so that conference is end of April. And it's going to include a panel that has one of our Stanford colleagues who worked on that with us, as well as a former national journalist who is a suicide prevention advocate. And actually, I will be on that panel as well. And hopefully, it's basically going to be on how we've interacted with and worked with the media on trying to prevent suicide contagion. And Tempos is going to be pretty heavily featured as part of that. So thank you for the suicide prevention plugs today, Vic.
I'm trying, Jay, because I think all these things have at some level an impact on Milpitas, the Milpitas work. Jay was alluding to policy. Some of you know that, let me step back to, I feel very fortunate about Milpitas, where I think Marcia Corelli's on, where she helped initiate the work, and we ended up where we're at today. Not all cities are as proactive, but we've gone out to try and get all the rest of them to adopt a policy. Got 7 or 8 of them from September through December of last year, and we're down to 2 cities remaining. And we're doing a lot of proactive work to try and get them. And if that's completed, and I hope it is in the next month or 2, we'll have all 15 cities in Santa Clara County with a city suicide prevention policy. Given the fact that in prior years, we got the school districts to adopt a policy, that probably led towards some people initiating an action where there's a state law or 2 state laws that require all California school districts to have a suicide prevention policy. We might end up being, probably are the only county or region in the country, probably in the world, that has a lot of its governing bodies, or almost all of them, with a suicide prevention policy. And so that's where we're at. We got 2 left. As I said, there's different people working on trying to get those 2 completed. And if that's done, I'll probably make a big deal out of it. Just so all of you know, meaning I will let some different agencies in the state of California and some of the national agencies and a few other things know what we did. My intention is always simple. It's to do the here and now. I mean, I'm I feel blessed that we have such a good effort in Milpitas, but it's also to enhance awareness. So it's to get a lot of people involved and let them know that it's not just people like us that need to do this work. It needs to be more pervasive than that. So in the policies that we got to date, I involved a lot of different people in those different cities to help put the word out to their council members that they wanted those policies adopted. So it's a double-edged benefit. We want the cities to do things, but we also want people that are living in those cities or have some involvement with them to also be involved.
Sorry, Vic, I'm going to interrupt you. I can't find my raise the hand button, so I'm just going to raise it. Which are those two cities? I know you mentioned Gilroy, I think.
Gilroy actually adopted a policy. What I did was I talked to the the Santa Clara County City Managers Association in August and asked all of the attendees to do something. And to my surprise, because we put Gilroy aside for a little bit because of different people had asked them in the past and gotten rejected. And I figured that was going to take a certain amount of effort. But to my surprise, the city manager, shortly after that meeting, initiated the work to get a policy adopted. So they adopted a policy in September.
Okay.
But I don't like to try and emphasize the cities who haven't done it. Let's wait and see what happens, and we'll get them done. But 93% of Santa Clara County's residents live in cities with a policy. The one other thing I was going to mention that came up at our SPOC meeting last week or whenever that was the work around 988. So some of you know that at the federal level, or for the country now, 988 has been adopted as the emergency call number with the idea of doing something like 911, making it easier for people to quickly dial a number and get through. There was a piece of state legislation in the California packet last year. It didn't get to the governor's desk. I think the governor put aside $20 million that the various California crisis centers are talking about how to use, including ours, SACS, or Suicide and Crisis Services line. But that piece of legislation, from what I understood the other day at a meeting, is going to come back with the whole idea of trying to make sure that there's ongoing, constant funding to have 988. So 988 is active. It's the federal law said it had to be active by July of 2022. Several areas have already activated it. So they're just going ahead. But the long-term question will be, how will it be funded? So we talked about it here. We're looking at it. Santa Clara County's SACS folks are looking at it. But the legislation that was proposed last year at the California level is going to come back again.
And Vic, if I can jump in on that as well, an ancillary piece to that is at the county, we are not going to quote unquote promote 988 just yet. We're going to keep using the full number in our materials and promotions just while leadership sort of sorts through some of this stuff and figures out how they want to do it, considering our area is prepared and ready and 988 will direct you to a call, but it's also based on area codes where your phone was purchased. So they're sort of figuring some of that stuff out because if you're a county resident, but your phone number is registered to Wisconsin, it's in Wisconsin where you're from, it's not ready. 988. Yeah. So you all see sort of the issue there, but just to give another piece.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jay, because we don't want to transition and move away from numbers that people know right now and are using right now. That's been working fine. So those are some of the things that are that we've talked about that I think have an impact on Milpitas.
Thank you, Vic. Yeah, I attended the SPOC meeting. It was, I think, very good. And the article that you shared as well.
Yeah, I guess one other comment then quickly too. Today at the, excuse me, County Board of Supervisors, the supervisors unanimously passed a proposal put forward by Supervisors Ellenberg and Lee, who I think represents Milpitas, right? And the proposal was a referral back to staff to put a more comprehensive approach together on how to deal with mental health in Santa Clara County. And essentially it declares, or it did declare, mental health a public health crisis. Right. So that passed unanimously. It's the front end of a long process, but people should be aware of that because it has an impact on Milpitas and all the rest of the cities in the county.
Yeah, they just passed it last night, I think, right?
But yesterday they had a press conference on it. Right. We had a NAMI representative there to speak. Today, the board had their regularly scheduled meeting, and it was item number 12. And there were a fair number of speakers speaking on behalf of it, including our NAMI chapter submitted a letter and had 3 or 4 people, including myself, speak in favor of it. So that's going to move ahead, and you should stay aware of it because you might want to have some input based on your own community experiences about what you think might be useful to be in whatever the final resolution is that'll come back in probably several months from now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing that up. I watched it in the news yesterday, but I didn't really get time to follow up with it. But we will. Thank you, Vic, and thank you, Jay. Moving on to my update. So we had a town hall. We're not calling it town halls anymore, more like support groups for our seniors in December. I was actually surprised. We had it in person. Quite a few showed up. And it was pretty good. It was pretty good in a way that it was very, very organic, the way they wanted it to be. And I think we are striving towards that. We want them to take ownership of these support groups, the participants who are attending it, and also see what they really want from it. From our seniors, of course, it's always about, trying to combat isolation a little bit, getting to know other people, making friends, talking to them, and just gathering and mingling. But unfortunately, we are closed again because of the new variant. So our next support group is going to be in February. I'm planning for it to be in person, but we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, we'll just have to do it on Zoom. And Jay already mentioned about the assist training. I'll be sharing the flyer from Jasmine with everyone after this meeting. And please register. Again, the training is on February 24th and 25th. Right now it's in person, but if things change, of course, you'll be informed. That's all the update from me for now. And I know we have a full discussion reviewing our media protocol. So Tegan, do you want to take it over? I can share the document. Tegan, your mic.
Oh yeah, Tegan, you're muted.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. We had a great discussion at our last HOPE meeting about the item that we wanted to add to our postvention protocol. And this was following some concerns about the way we make public statements following a suicide. And so we took all the input that we got at the last HOPE meeting, and Captain John Torres from the police department was at the last HOPE meeting, so he heard your input, and he and I met recently with Chief Hernandez, and we tried to combine the concerns that HOPE had with the way that the police department practices, it's public information. And so we wanted to walk you through what we have as a proposed statement. Captain Torres, I know you're on, so feel free to unmute yourself and add some input if I miss anything. We wanted to start with, opening if a local suicide occurs, the Milpitas Police Department may deem it necessary to make a public statement. There are times when they have to make a public statement, and we spoke about that. It was clear in the HOPE discussion that sometimes, that HOPE members didn't always want there to be a statement. And so we wanted to make it clear kind of when they need to make a statement. And some examples would be if the suicide occurs in public, if people see it, if it impacts the public, such as resulting in a road or building closure that's really visible, or if it generates significant public concern. Those are the kinds of things that might prompt PD to need to make a statement. If the statement is necessary, the press release will be drafted pursuant to police department policy and consistent with best practices and recommendations for reporting on suicide. And we cited the source there, reportingonsuicide.org. And that was a suggestion that came from the police department. And I felt that that was a really good one because they're looking toward a national standard as they make their statements, and should contain, contact information for community suicide prevention resources. That should always be part of anything that we release. And I know that, we did have that in the last couple that have gone out. There was a typo on one of the numbers, but we've since gotten that corrected, and we'll make sure that all that information is correct when it goes out. The next piece, recognizing the sensitivity surrounding a death by suicide and its impact on survivors personally and culturally. And we wanted to, get that cultural thing in there, sort of ties into with what the county's doing. The statement will avoid identifying the death as a suicide when possible. So we had, in an earlier draft, I think, said that we are, I think a draft that I had written indicated that we wouldn't use the word suicide if we could avoid it. But as PD pointed out, sometimes they have to use that word to quell people's concerns, fears, that it might have been a homicide or other things. So they will avoid it if they can. With all suicide-related statements, the police department will make an effort to advise the HOPE liaison and the deceased's family of the intent to release information. So that means that they would send a notification to me as the liaison for the group and to the family in advance. Again, there's times when, if they had to release something in the middle of the night because it was in, the media at that point, they're going to give us the information about the intent to release it, but they're not necessarily going to be able to let us know the content of it prior to it being made public. Let's see, where were we? If the suicide involves a student, and I know this was an important piece with the last one, the police department will make an effort to advise appropriate school officials of the intent to release information. And we did have Milpitas Unified School District in there. We took it out and made it more general, because if it was a private school or a college district or something else, we want to cover it for all the schools. If a student is involved, that whichever school is affected would be notified of the intent to release information. And then the last portion of this, the decision to issue a release will be considered on a case-by-case basis, and a public statement will only be issued when necessary for public safety and peace of mind and to prevent prevention of copycat incidents. So the default would be if we can avoid issuing a statement, we would avoid issuing a statement. The other thing I wanted to point out that we talked about a lot was the original language had press release. And we've taken the word press release out and made it a statement, because in the most recent one, the place that PD chose to release the information was on social media, because that was where they were encountering buzz from members of the community who thought they had information about the incident. And it was important for police to quickly stop the misinformation that was flying around. So that's kind of what we've come up with right now. Captain Torres, John, do you want to add anything?
Let me make sure I got all my stuff on here, video and audio. No, I think that's everything that we covered, while trying to just make sure that we took into account what some of the concerns were from the last, I think, 2 meetings that we've discussed that, and some of the practices that we use here at the police department. So again, the chief sat in on this, and so yeah, I think this is what we came up with, and I think it should satisfy all the concerns of everybody that was involved.
Jay has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Tegan. Thanks, Captain Torres. I think this looks good. I think it's a definite improvement. I have one piece that I don't feel ardently that it is absolutely needed to be included, but it's just a thought, which would be some like just extra sentence or something that is like, if feasible, the statement will be provided to the liaison for review. So like Tegan could put eyes on it, like, or just in cooperation or coordination.
So
I understand some of that's sort of built in, but just,
there's going to be times where that's just not,
yeah,
time-wise, within the timeline of what we're doing, is not going to be feasible. So we don't, and I think
That's
we
what-
discussed
yeah.
that. I think we had discussed that yesterday with Tegan, is that I'm not going to wake her up at 3 a.m. when something happens to ask her to take a look at this, or to just to inform her. And I think our consensus was, since she's the liaison here for the city, is that an email will suffice, so that when she comes in the morning, that she has a copy of the press release. We don't have a problem, because by that time, when we are making that notification under this, again, if we can do it within that time frame that we're hoping for,
yeah,
is that we'll provide her with a PDF of what is going to be issued anyway.
yeah,
So that way she'll have it and see what's there.
okay,
And I think that is covered in there. Is just, when, unfortunately, with anything, if you don't know, in police work, I mean, not everything is from that 8 to 5 type of, business time. And sometimes we just can't delay sharing of information. And so we didn't want to have anything in there that restricted us to it, because
Okay.
on the off chance that we didn't meet that, is it a fault of ours or a fault of the task forces, or whose? This way, it's just as soon as we can get it done, that we will. And amongst the two of us, that's the agreement that we came up with, that would work. And then from there, she can disseminate it on her time frame to the rest of the group.
okay. Thank you for the detailed answer. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Captain Torres, and thank you, Tegan. Do we have any questions for them? Any more questions before we move to our next item? Yes, Mr. Valor. You're muted.
My microphone is turned off. Maybe that was a good thing. Anyway, I believe amongst the community of persons who have been tied to a suicide in one form or another, they have gotten away from using that term suicide. They have replaced the term with other terms that are gentler. And I'm wondering if we could just make it, I mean, even in the way we describe our organization, we don't use that term. We use hope, Milpitas hope. So I'm wondering if it's even necessary to use the term suicide. The other thing I was wondering about is, you know, it seems like, from what I've heard, if I understood correctly, the only purpose in putting out any kind of a statement is to allay concerns that there might be somebody running around with a gun trying to take lives. And as long as that issue is addressed, that it's not, is there any reason for identifying the fact that what has occurred is that somebody has died at their own hand? I mean, you know, it seems like we have this belief that we have the right to know everything about anything, regardless of, you know, regardless of who it is and what it is, and I'm, without taking into consideration the rights of those that are most affected by it, and those that are on the periphery seem to believe that they have all kinds of rights also. And I'm wondering if sometimes we, in trying to placate everybody, we don't properly address the individuals that are most affected. Anyway, those, for better or for worse, those are my general reactions to this in general terms.
So if I could answer some of that, yeah, those are all understandable. And I think that policy covers that off. Is that if you follow any of our social media things, you see that we post about, you know, an auto burglary. And I'm not trying to say that any of these things are in the same realm as posting about a suicide investigation or that has happened, right? I mean, they're on the scope of just two completely different things. This is just more for as an example, but you see a lot more of those things going out on a frequent basis. The only time that we've put out information about any suicide investigations that we've conducted, probably within the last year, were three major ones that were basically, without having this document in front of us at the time, met all those criteria to where it was in a public place. It impacted the public based on the number of personnel, both, you know, police personnel, fire personnel. It impacted a roadway or a business. And then most recently, it had to deal with, we were trying to stem the misinformation by a younger set of our community that may be going out there to spread any rumors or to squash those rumors about what had actually occurred. So to your point, yes, I mean, most of the times you won't hear about a suicide investigation that we conducted unless it meets certain criteria. So I think without this document, we were already doing this. This just kind of puts it in place so that people can see that's kind of what we were already following in the first place. I agree that, you know, not everybody needs to know about what has happened. But again, sometimes the police department has to be transparent with things, and we try not to put out a lot of information other than just a quick factual blurb about what's going on, just so that it stems that misinformation that might be out there, or people that are intent on just providing misinformation. Because you would be amazed at the amount of either phone calls we get, emails, or, you know, we do get some of those things when we have a major investigation, and not even related to a suicide. I mean, just people calling in, asking and wondering, or now we start seeing online that, hey, you know, I saw these cops out there, this is what's going on, and it's not factually correct. So hopefully that kind of answers that and kind of takes care of that issue for you.
I would want to add also that we had a great discussion with the chief about, and we took out the word public interest, because it is, you're right, it's not anybody's business to be interested in have the, the details, but public concern is a different matter. So that's why we replaced it with public concern. And we want to make sure that when we're releasing it, it is to allay concerns and worries that are out there, not just to satisfy people's curiosity.
And then with your point about using the word suicide, unless I'm reading it wrong, if you review the best practices and recommendations for reporting on suicide, it does actually have a bullet point in there saying that, it should be called that rather than something else, per those practices and guidelines. So that's one of the reasons that we went with that as well.
John, you guys made an interesting and helpful point, I thought, yesterday when we talked, that if you're too vague on it, that prompts inquiries from the press and inquiries from the public. Whereas if you stated it factually and succinctly, it sort of stops the inquiries that you get.
Yes, and you're 100% correct. I mean, that is for, let's take the last press release that we're dealing with and we're discussing now. I don't recall, once we put that information out, any press inquiries at all. I could be mistaken, but if there were, it was maybe one, if any. But again, when they call, we're just providing the information that was contained in that press release, and it stops any story from being run with anything differing of that, because, and by putting it out ahead of the media trying to put it out on their own, we now become, and we are the official source for information regarding that. If you take the tragic homicide that we had recently and notice any of the news stories in there, without going into detail of them, we put out a press release for that, and the news media was still running stories of it that contained information that was not factually correct. And so those are the things that happen when, we have to be put out enough info. And with the homicide investigation, we couldn't put everything out because we were still waiting to go to court on that for the arraignment, but they just kind of ran with that. So you can see where sometimes those stories will get blown out of proportion, where if we're straight and to the point and respect everybody's privacy that we can, there's no other direction for them to go, and it's just kind of done. And I think to a certain extent that is some of the healing process for everyone. I would hope is that they don't have to continue to relive that, because the media is constantly putting out new stories or trying to figure out what happened because the information wasn't given to them in the first place. So that's one of the reasons, and one of the things that Tegan and I, along with the chief, had discussed.
I see Nicole has her hand up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon or evening, everybody. Apologies for being late. I had another meeting that ran a little bit later, and apologies for being off camera. I had to eat my lunch, but I really appreciate this. And I wonder if we want to include something about the schools having, well, it's only Milpitas High School, but we do have an SRO through the Milpitas Police Department. And I think that's one of the ways that we kind of communicate through with the police department. So I'm wondering if we may want to put in, in that the bit about if a suicide involves a student, the police department will make an effort to advise appropriate school officials, and put something in there about the SRO, because it's a wonderful relationship we have and we really appreciate it.
So typically what we do, and I the SROs is one of the work groups that I also supervise. So thank you for talking about the work they do. Those guys are doing a lot out there to try and engage with the kids. And I think they're doing a lot of work, and it's good work. With your statement about, putting the SROs, I mean, we don't, again, when you develop a policy or anything, we don't want to, we have to have something that's in place that gives us the structure, but that gives us the latitude to make notifications in any manner that we could. You may have a day where the SROs are not there. So we don't want to tie ourselves to that's the only way that we can do a notification. And with this, the notification will straight to the superintendent's office, because that is typical of any of our major investigations involving students or anything where the student is involved. Is we'll probably, not probably, we will make our notifications through the liaison, who will then follow their protocol to make notifications to the school district itself. So we don't want to jump or do anything that contradicts what the school district has in place. So by keeping it just like that, you know, the appropriate school officials, you can infer that for this, it would be the superintendent's office. But we didn't want to put Milpitas Unified School District into this section, because we do have a number of private schools here. We also have an extension college that we, you know, in the initial draft of this, we weren't thinking about it. So we want to make sure that the way we investigate suicides and the way we make notifications is the same across the table for any student that is involved, because it's equally important to make sure that information gets there. Because once we give that to the school official, there may be a delay on their part to make sure that they have the resources in place and the proper wording, how they're going to disseminate that as well. So hopefully that answers that about the SROs.
Yeah, and this is just in context of the communication, so that makes perfect sense. But we just want to highlight the work they do because they're very, very helpful. So thank you for them.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for your feedback. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. So moving on to our work group updates. We have like 20 minutes. Any update from diversity?
No.
No. I do have updates from youth because John was unable to make it today. He had something else going on, and he sends his apologies. I know Marcia and Pastor Mize, and I'm not sure if Anthony is here, but I can do a short update on the youth committee, if that's okay. Or Marcia, would you like to say something? So just add on. Yeah. So we met briefly regarding Like movie, the documentary that the county is purchasing for our use. So thank you, Jay, and thank you everyone at the county. We are excited, and we are also partnering with the school district to make it available to at least 100 students in high school. And I think we'll set up a date, a week of viewing window open in May or June before the school gets out. And then we'll have in-person screening event as well with question and answers and a resource fair. So that's a plan for the youth committee this summer. The other thing that we talked about was bringing 2 liaisons from Milpitas High School, and I do have a meeting with Nicole later on this month to talk about it, to bring at least a junior and a senior to our Hope Task Force to see if, you know, we've had student liaisons, but I think she'll be graduating soon, so we need to replace her. So youth committee is going to start talking about that step, getting more youth involvement in our Hope Task Force. Those were the 2 updates. But Marcia, if you had anything, don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I think that you covered it very well, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. That's on the youth, and moving on to partnership and public safety. Tegan, I think we just discussed a lot on that.
Well, we did, but we have some exciting other stuff to share too. So I'm sorry that Lieutenant Jameson is not able to join us, because I really wanted him to be able to share, since he was the one that was most closely involved. But he passed along that we completed our 2nd round of trainings from our nonprofit partners. Uplift presented recently to the police department and presented to all 3 patrol units, the investigative unit, and some of the support staff. And he said that it was a very beneficial and informational presentation. So that's 2 now that we've done, NAMI being the first one and Uplift being the second. And these seem to be being very well received by public safety. And so we will continue with a different group in the springtime. And so I think that that piece of our mission is working well.
Thank you, Tegan. Yeah, that's very exciting. And moving on to RP empowerment, I know I don't see Mr. Nguyen here today, but I can do a little update. And I know Jay has been working with us on that one too, and Liliana. So for the RP empowerment, we have two support groups set up coming up in February and March. So we shall begin the outreach pretty soon on those two support groups. Hopefully we can do them in person. No, sorry, those are, we decided that we would do our first ones online just to encourage more people to attend. And then if it takes off, successfully, then we present it in person in the summer. I'm still trying to get an answer from Aki if they will be supporting us on that. And if not, then I'll have to look for other nonprofit partner. That's the end of updates from me, but I'm going to do something in reverse order today. I know we have Nicole after a long time. So if we can do introductions, which I forgot to do in the beginning. Who wants to start?
Why don't you just call our names based on who's on your screen?
Sure, I can go first. Nicole, you know me, and everyone else too. I'm Charu Agarwal. Now I'm the senior, still have to get used to my title. Let me read it, I'm sorry. Senior Special Projects Associate of the Recreation and Community Services with City of Milpitas. The change in my employment is because I chose a little bit of a personal reasons, lifestyle change. I've become part-time, but I'll still continue to do the hope work till they find a replacement. So, Mr. Valor, do you want to go next?
I guess I'm just a resident grouchy old man.
Oh, I agree.
Thanks, Marcia. I could always count on you.
Yeah.
Marcia, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Marcia Corelli. I think I know everyone here. I'm a longtime resident of Milpitas, and I'm very proud of all the work the city of Milpitas is doing on this project.
Captain Torres.
Hi again. John Torres with Milpitas Police Department, obviously. Currently a captain, and I oversee our Special Operations Division, which includes the Criminal Investigations Bureau, Personnel and Training, and our Police Community Relations Unit. I've worked for the police department for coming on close to 30 years, and I was born and raised in the city of Milpitas. So to be involved in any of the task force or any of the groups that have an effect on the city is always something a little bit more meaningful for me, just because I do have that tie, and I still have family that resides here. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and that's it.
Thank you. And Vic?
I was going to say, can we applaud him?
Yes, we can. 30 years. Thank you for your service.
I'm Vic Ojakian. I guess two main things that I do in Santa Clara County are that I co-chair the Santa Clara County Suicide Prevention Committee. We call ourselves SPOC, Suicide Prevention Oversight Committee. And I'm the co-president of NAMI Santa Clara County. And by the way, we have a general meeting tonight. Any of you can find the information on by going into our website, NAMI Santa Clara County. We're going to present our annual community merit award, and the recipient is the Stanford Mood Disorder Day. It's the first time we're giving it to not an individual, but to a function, which if you aren't familiar with, you should be, because they hold a free all-day session, usually in July, and it's very well attended, particularly by family members. And then after that presentation, Manpreet Singh, Dr. Singh, who works at Stanford, and one of the things she heads up is the Mood Disorder Day. She will be speaking, give me half a second. She will be speaking on family-focused therapy for youth at risk for bipolar. So she will get a double, she has double duty tonight. She gets the award for the program and then she'll speak afterwards. And I think, because I know Manpreet, I think she might be a Milpitas resident to boot. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Basically, I'm a suicide preventionist. And see, Tom, I use the word.
Thank you, Vic. Vic, are these meetings recorded? NAMI
Yeah,
meetings?
they
Yeah.
are recorded, and we it's usually within a couple of days of the meeting, they get posted on the website.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Nicole, you can go next.
Thank you. And I do apologize for not being able to meet these meetings. I have a lot of overlapping ones, so I will try my best. And if the time changes, then I'll be there. But thank you all for the work you do. My name is Nicole Stewart. I'm the School Link Services Coordinator / McKinney-Vento Homeless Youth Liaison / Foster Youth Liaison. Basically, I'm the social worker for the district, and I oversee our McKinney-Vento, our homeless youth program, our foster youth as they enter and move around. And then I also just support all the school sites, all the students and all the families in whatever they need. And I've been working very closely with the city of Milpitas for rent relief, which has been amazing. Just got a family of 5 in a hotel today. And then working with Charu and others to do outreach and resource fairs. So very much appreciate this group. And even when I'm not at the meetings, I do look at the agendas and I do look at the notes. So appreciate it very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nicole. Jay?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jay Donahue. I am a coordinator with the County Suicide Prevention Program, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Jay. Tegan?
My title is Community Engagement and Inclusion Administrator for the City of Milpitas, and I'm the Assistant Director for our Recreation and Community Services Department.
Thank you. I don't know if Vince wants to introduce himself.
Hi all, my name is Vince Calantes. I work for the Milpitas Recreation Department as well. I oversee contract classes, but I'm taking notes and minutes right now for you guys.
Thank you, Vince. So that was it from us. If there aren't any.
Actually, Charu, did you get Pastor Mize?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's the brain fog.
I'm Robert Mize, pastor at Cathedral of Faith in Milpitas, and I've been involved in this group ever since Marcia and Bob brought it to the city council. I was there, and I've been here doing it ever since.
And I see we have a guest, Rebecca Cole. I don't have the ability to promote her, but maybe Charu or IT has the ability if she'd like to introduce herself.
Let me see. Attendees. Ms. Cole, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, good afternoon. Oh, join as a panelist, yes.
I promoted you. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. This is my first meeting here, so I appreciate the introductions. I didn't recognize some of you. Hey, Nicole. And many of you are new to me. I am the district psychologist. I supervise the mental health clinicians in Milpitas Unified School District. So what you are all talking about is very, very relevant to my work and my work with Nicole. So thank you very much for a very informative presentation. I look forward to attending more of these meetings in the future, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Do you want to be added to our roster?
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Okay. We'll do that.
Thank you.
And Pastor Mize, I forgot you because we couldn't see you today.
He likes to hide. He likes to hide, but he also has helped support a lot of our students. So thank you, Pastor Mize. Good to see you.
Thank you.
My
for the
pleasure.
work you do. Yeah.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One of the groups that I'm involved in, and Marcia is as well, is Hope for the Unhoused. We're dealing quite a bit with, not quite a bit, but the primary purpose of our group is to reach out and try to help those in the Milpitas community that are unhoused. And I was wondering, with I mean, many, I don't know whether to say many or a substantial number, mental health in the unhoused community is probably something that is pervasive. And so consequently, I was wondering, do we have any statistics that indicate what the suicide, there I said it, the suicide rate is amongst the unhoused members of our community? I haven't really heard of many any in Milpitas. In other, in San Jose and some of the other cities, there may be a greater number. But one of the difficulties certainly is they don't have computers or connection to the internet where they have, where we can communicate with them or get information to them. And many of them don't even have phones where they could call, even if we gave them a number to where they could call if they were having some difficulty. So I'm not sure how, or if anybody has any recommendations as to how we might deal with the issue in that particular community.
That's a good question. Do we have any statistics, Jay, with the county?
So because that population is incredibly challenging to actually tabulate, we won't have any, at least at the county, we do not have a suicide rate among the housing insecure or unhoused, but we would be able to tabulate of the suicides, how many of them or what percentage of them were unhoused. So you see a sort of a twist in the statistic itself. And so as far as any kind of remedy for that situation, because you're right, Tom, that obviously mental health is a very pervasive issue among that population. Basically, the work that folks are engaging in now the public health front is the best thing that they can do, which is try to get services out to folks, try to do stuff like Nicole is doing and getting folks who are housing insecure into housing, and just do everything that they can to get out in front of that issue and allow them to sort of, I hate the phrase get on your feet or something like that, but you know what I mean? Afford them the opportunities that many of us have been afforded. So any kind of work that you can do up front, I don't know if there's necessarily a single remedy.
No, the unfortunate part is that the waiting list to get into housing in the county is somewhere in the 9,000 or more, and the turnover is only in the hundreds on an annual basis. So the odds of getting into housing for those that are truly unhoused and are there because of, for whatever reasons, financial or mental issues or whatever, the odds of getting into housing are difficult. I mean, we struggle with getting people into housing that are in such bad shape that in this country, there should be no reason for somebody in the kind of shape some of them are in to be out on the street. They just physically, it's unreasonable to have them out on the street. The fact that they are able to survive on the street for as long as some of them have in the condition that they're in is remarkable. And the amount of difficulties that some of them have in terms of physical ailments and mental ailments.
Yeah.
But I'm sure most of you are aware of it. I just
right. Yeah, no, I think you're saying that's the truth. To get someone into a housing is minimum wait of 7 years, if not more. So, but thank you for bringing that up. Small steps though, library is hiring a part-time case manager, and I know there's a big encampment by the library, so you can encourage people to go for resources to the library once they have a part-time case manager.
And I think just to Tom's point, because some of the families that we work with are unhoused, but we try to, if it's a family with young kids, we get them into housing right away, whether it's shelter or hotel. And most of our homeless kids are actually doubled up or tripled up or quadrupled up. So they're housed, but the transition is constantly there for them. So while I don't do a lot of the street outreach, I do know that there are agencies that do street outreach, and when they do, they offer those supports. So whether it's medical, mental health, dental, any of those things, the challenge is often getting those folks to avail themselves of the services. But sometimes I know some of the cities or towns will have like a vaccination van go, or like a van that can do a dental checkup on the spot. So that's really what's needed. But I do know that folks that go out to the street, go out and find folks, they do provide, suicide hotline information, mental health support information. But yeah, Tom, it's an all hands on deck situation, and mostly on the prevention end is where we can get, more traction. So the intervention part's really challenging, but thank you for your compassion.
Yeah. Thank you. It can be a discussion for another meeting too, Tom, maybe a separate one from Hope, but I'll ask Jay to send us some statistics if he can find any for the county. But just so that we remember, we have to end at 5 because of the council meetings. So I'll say bye to everyone and see you next month on February 8th at 4 p.m. Thank you.